Last year, Father's Day started out as usual. I always woke up first. I never got a good night's sleep, so I knew it would be quite a while before my 18-year-old wife and my 18 and 17-year-old girls woke up and joined me. Every year for Mother's Day, I made my wife a nice breakfast of mimosas. For lunch, I would make her a cheese, fruit, and nut plate with a bottle of good white wine. For dinner, I would make her favorite dinner, grilled steak and baked potatoes paired with a good Cabernet Sauvignon. When the girls were younger, they helped with breakfast and the obligatory waiting for mom, but as they got older, I was left alone to pamper them. No big deal. My wife usually reciprocated by cooking me a special breakfast, although on Father's Day I cooked steaks for dinner. So last year on Father's Day, I waited until my wife woke up to make me breakfast, which doesn't happen on any other day of the year. She doesn't know it, but I usually eat something small when I wake up around 6. I would starve to death if I didn't eat until she wakes up around 9, which is early for her on the weekend. When she woke up, she gave me a kiss, wished me a happy Father's Day, and started making a special breakfast for the family. For lunch, we went to a kitschy little cafe with Doctor Who-themed sandwiches, and overall it was a good day. My wife is a slave to the calendar and knows when all the important dates fall. She manages everything from holidays to the kids' activities with a dry erase calendar hanging on the side of the kitchen cabinet. All holidays, milestones, school events, half-days, etc. are recorded on the calendar. Nothing is ever missed. Except when I miss something, of course. The next year, when my wife was putting the dates on the calendar at the end of May, she said, "Hey Bill, your birthday falls on Father's Day this year." It wasn't the first time, so I wasn't surprised. I said, "Nice. Don't save money and cheat me if I don't get 2 gifts." Kathy replied with a laugh, "You'll never leave me alone if you get cheated out of a gift. I'm going to have to do something special for you this year." I kissed her cheek and squeezed her ass as I walked out of the kitchen. I hoped she meant something more than the annual birthday and Father's Day blowjobs. She started giving me blowjobs when we were making regular love, but never finished them. They were usually part of foreplay, except for those 2 days when she brought it to an end, so to speak. On my birthday and Father's Day, she would give me a good blowjob, not expecting to get one in return. I usually brought her to orgasm when she did. I wasn't a complete idiot about it. I was horny and thought I was going to get super rare anal sex on my upcoming special day. The weeks leading up to my big day were strange in our house. My wife was acting strange. She was working late, snapping at me and the girls about little things, and she started dressing for work more often. She worked as the bakery manager at our local grocery store. She had never worn makeup before, but around this time she began to do so. She also wore a scarf over her clothes, which consisted of a white button-down shirt and pants. She would leave another button undone, which further showed off her ample cleavage. I started to have my doubts when, on the Friday before my birthday, she went somewhere without me. We often met together with a core group of married couples, so she rarely went out with the girls alone. If someone was going out for a drink and invited her along, she would let me know the place and I would meet them. It's not like I was an ogre and wouldn't let her do things on her own. She always said she enjoyed her time more if I was with her. It made me feel good, and I thought our marriage was pretty strong because of little things like that. For my part, I didn't do much without her outside of our social circle either. It just worked for us. We weren't party people or big drinkers. Our idea of a nice Friday night was just hanging out on the couch together and watching a couple of movies. That's why I was surprised to see her coming down the stairs that Friday, dressed to the hilt. She was wearing a new short skirt, nude stockings, and high-heeled shoes. She had also clearly been to the tanning salon and had her hair done. I whistled and asked, "Shit, honey, did I forget about the fact that we're going out? Let me get dressed real quick." "No, Bill. I'm going out with a few people from work. I thought you could order a pizza for yourself since our girls are going out too." I was shocked. She had never mentioned it, and it wasn't on her precious calendar. "Oh? You didn't tell me you had plans. I thought we'd finish our shows tonight." A look of fear appeared on her beautiful face, but then she pulled herself together and softened. "I'm sorry, babe. I was just asked today." I made it a point to look her over from head to toe and said, "So you just found out today, and in the hour you were at work before me, you bought a new skirt, went tanning, and got your hair done?" I was getting angry. She was lying to me, but I couldn't prove it. I couldn't believe she could cheat on me. It was out of character. She was the epitome of a suburban soccer mom's wife and mother. Our sex life was great. We still made love several times a week. She had no reason to cheat on me. She snapped back. I worked half a day today. I wanted to look good for a change. Before I could respond, she was out the door without another word, leaving me wondering what the hell had happened. I waited for her, and she came home just before midnight. Her hair was no longer lying down, but was put up in a regular ponytail. So much for the hairstyle. She walked past me without a word and went upstairs. A few minutes later, I heard the shower running. I could only shake my head and wonder what she had done that she had to shower before bed. She didn't come down and say goodnight before going to bed. I realized that something was wrong in my perfect little world, and wondered how wrong. I work in the retail industry, so I was at work on Saturday morning. Usually when I was getting ready for work, she would wake up and kiss me goodbye before going back to bed. That morning I got nothing. Once again, I was shocked. When I got to the store, I saw Missy waiting at the entrance. Missy was the morning barista at our big store's coffee shop. She was a pretty red-haired girl whose blue eyes were striking. As happily married as I was, I couldn't help but take notice of her. I had always liked redheads. "Hey, Bill," she called out as I approached the entrance. It was still locked, since it was a half hour before the store opened. The guys on the night crew could have let her in, but as she had told me before, she didn't feel comfortable alone in a store with a bunch of guys. "Good morning, Missy," I said as I opened the doors in front of us. "What's wrong, Bill?" "You look like someone killed your cat." "I'm sorry, I have a lot on my mind today." She gave me a strange look, but left it at that. "Give me a few minutes and I'll pour you a cup of our best." I forced myself to smile and said, "Sounds good. I'll see you soon." I locked the doors as she hurried to get the cafe ready for the morning rush. I knew she would be very busy once the store opened. Our little cafe was always crowded in the mornings. As I walked the floor, I would check on the crews who were preparing their departments. I always went around the departments in the morning. This was not necessary as I had a very good team of department managers, but it gave me a chance to say hello and make small talk. I felt it was important to maintain a good relationship with my team members, and I think they appreciated my efforts. The last stop on my walk was a coffee shop where Missy had my large black coffee waiting for me. "Here you go, boss. 1 cup of Megamart's best beer." "Thanks, Missy." I put $2 on the counter. "No, Bill. He's in the house today." "No way, Missy. I pay for everything here. The last thing I need is someone getting mad at me and calling corporate to denounce me." She gasped. "Bill, I would never—" "I didn't mean you, Missy. I can't take any chances, even for a $2 coffee. You'd be surprised at the things I have to put up with if I deny someone a day off or cut overtime. It's just unreasonable." "All right, boss. Fair enough." I waved goodbye and sipped from my mug. I'm sure some of the employees got free coffee from time to time. There's no way to track it, and who needs to? Too much work because of cheap coffee. I can't imagine watching hours of video to make sure everyone paid. It was different for me. Being in charge of a company was a risk. Employees lost their temper over the dumbest things. I had HR called on me because I was enforcing parking regulations. Seriously, calling HR because you have to park in your backyard. That's ridiculous. The day ended and went pretty quietly. The thing that excited me the most was the old lady who stole the cat food and bird food. It was exactly the kind of day I needed. I was busy enough not to ruminate on my new problems with my wife, but not so busy that I couldn't get everything done on time. When I walked through the door of the house, my wife and daughters were on their way out. I was surprised for a moment, but I looked at the calendar. "Bye, Daddy," my daughter said, kissing me on the cheek goodbye. My loving wife said nothing. They were going to a concert with other moms and daughters. It had been planned a long time ago and was on the calendar, but as usual, I forgot. I was hoping that I would have a chance to talk to Katie and figure out what was going on. I hated not knowing what she had done the night before. After not thinking about it all day, there was nothing left for me to do but ruminate about it tonight. I took this opportunity to do a bit of fooling around. I checked her email but figured it wouldn't work, and it did. No one else was sending emails. She had a cell phone, so I couldn't check her messages or call log. I went over to the hamper to check her clothes from the evening, but since it was Saturday, she had already done her laundry. I accomplished nothing, and after watching the movie, I went to bed feeling no better than before. I woke up on my birthday and Father's Day and started my day as usual. I ate a couple slices of toast, drank some coffee, and sat on the terrace to enjoy the morning. It was a gorgeous day. I enjoyed the birds chirping and wondered what this special day had in store for me. Around 9, I went into the house to refill my coffee and was surprised to see that my wife and daughters were already up and packing lunch. "What's going on?" I asked, wondering why they didn't make me get ready to go somewhere. My daughter Jill said, "We're going to the beach." "Oh," I said, and went upstairs to get dressed for the lake. As I was putting on my shirt, I heard my daughter Jenny yell out, "Bye, Daddy! See you later." The door slammed shut, and I looked out the window to see my wife and daughters leaving. I couldn't believe it. I didn't expect the girls to remember my birthday. I had to remind them of their mother's birthday and Mother's Day, but I couldn't understand Katie not remembering. I walked down the stairs and heard my cell phone ring. I rushed over there, hoping they understood and were going to tell me they were coming back for me, but no. It was my mom. "Hey, Billy! Happy birthday and Father's Day!" "Thank you, Mom." "Kathy has big plans for you guys today?" "No. She took the girls to the beach a few minutes ago." "Really? That's not like her. I'd bet she'd make you a delicious breakfast and make this day special for you." "Yeah, I honestly don't know what's going on right now. She's been acting weird for weeks now." "Well, don't make a fuss. She probably has something special planned for later. I've got to get to church. Love you, Billy." "Love you, Mom." You had to love my mom. She was an eternal optimist, and she loved Kathy as if she were her own flesh and blood. She and Kathy had visited each other regularly since my dad had died a few years before. Kathy wanted to make sure that Mom wasn't too lonely. I was standing there wondering what the hell was going on with my marriage when the phone rang again. It was my assistant, Anne. "Bill, we had an incident at the coffee shop this morning." "What's wrong?" Missy was on the stairs when she was pushed by a customer. "She lost her balance and fell." "Oh my God!" "Is she okay?" "They took her to St. Alex's Hospital to get x-rays. She might have a broken arm or something." "Damn!" "Poor girl. Do you have a shift?" "Yeah, it's all set. I just didn't want you to catch me off guard tomorrow. I'm sorry I bothered you on Father's Day." "Don't worry about it, Anne. Thanks for calling. I was hoping Missy would be okay." I fiddled around the house for a while and, figuring they weren't coming back, headed to IHOP for breakfast. It turned out to be a mistake for my state of mind. The wait was long, and everywhere I looked there were families. Happy families celebrating fathers and grandfathers. I left before I started crying. I made my way through McDonald's and got a big breakfast of coffee and orange juice. The pancakes were surprisingly tasty as I sat in the park and ate with a plastic fork and knife. I looked out at the small lake I used to take my girls boating on when they were little. They loved the water. Whether it was swimming, boating, or even fishing, they loved being on the lake. As they got older and almost went to college, they lost interest in fishing, and looking back, I think they lost interest in spending time with me at all. In those days, all their outings were with their mother. Probably the right thing to do. Shopping for clothes with my father, I'm sure, would have been burdensome for a young girl. At 1 o'clock, there was no word from my wife. I could only assume that there would be no dinner together. I stopped by the Doctor Who cafe and ordered a Reuben. Of course, the name was related to the show, like the Dalek Reuben Revolution or something equally silly. Being a 40-year-old man who has no idea what's cool and what's not, I took a picture and registered on Facebook. I got the usual likes and happy Father's Day greetings from my friends and acquaintances. Oddly, my mother-in-law commented that she thought I was at the beach with my wife and girls. Apparently, my wife had been posting beach pictures on her Facebook page. I finished my sandwich and headed to a sports bar near my house. I hadn't watched a ball game in a while, so I decided to drown my sorrows in Miller Lite. The bar was crowded, and I wasn't in the mood for it, so I went to the cigar lounge next door and treated myself to a $60 Opus X. Happy birthday to me. I sat down at a table and turned on the Sox game, and a couple guys playing cards invited me to join them. "I'm Bill," I said, introducing myself to the older gentleman. "I'm Lance, and this is my brother Jerry. It's nice to meet you both." They finished their hand and dealt me in their little 5-card game. "Help yourself, Bill," Lance said, setting the cooler on the floor. I thanked him and pulled out a Miller Lite. No kids? Or is the ex having them with a new man? Asked Jerry with a smirk. I frowned and said, My wife and the girls are at the beach. They don't seem to know what day it is. Sucks, Lance added. I don't see my boys much. Both are serving? Jerry nodded and said, My daughter lives in California. My grandson Charlie just turned 2 years old. I'm going there next week. That's great, I said. When my girls turned 17 and 18, I was starting to miss the little ones running around. They both nodded understandingly. After some time of small talk, we somehow got back to the subject of my wife. Do you think she really forgot, or is she avoiding you on purpose? Asked Jerry. It was a great question that I've been pondering as well. I told them about the last few weeks, up until Friday's problems, and they shook their heads. She's cheating on you, Lance said. Jerry nodded in agreement. I can't believe it, I said. But as soon as he said it, I realized it was the only explanation that made sense, and I tried to believe it wasn't true. Look, Bill, Lance said. I've been through this before. The changes in behavior, the sudden night out in slut clothes, the disrespect. I've been through it, buddy. My wife fucked a coworker a couple times, and when I found out about it, I divorced her. Biggest mistake of my life. What? Snapped back at me. She cheated on you. How is divorcing her a mistake? In my opinion, there were no excuses. Treason is the end of a marriage, plain and simple. Period. End of story. Bill, I was broke for 5 years paying her child support and alimony. I missed her every damn day, loving her across town in my lonely apartment while she was alone in my house. She may have cheated on me, but at that moment I was too arrogant to forgive her. It's been 7 years, but we got back together after I pulled my head out of my ass. We're happy now. Jesus, I said. Giving her body to another man is the biggest insult and disrespect my wife is capable of. If what you say is true and she's having an affair, then she's either so involved with her lover that she's forgotten my birthday, or she's purposely blowing me off. Either of those options is unacceptable. Lance shook his head. Bill, trust me. If you really love her, find a way to forgive her. You'll be better off in the long run. 40-year-old guys don't get second chances at love. Thank you, Lance. You've given me a lot of food for thought. I may have said that, but what I was really thinking was that he was crazy. There was no way I could forgive her for cheating on me, and no way I could stay married to her. I shook both men's hands, wished them well, and left. As I sat on the couch browsing Facebook, it was almost dinner time. I saw my daughter's and wife's posts with pictures of their happy day and was saddened even more. Screw it, thought I. I needed to man up and stop acting like a lost child. My wife forgot my birthday. It happens. She forgot Father's Day. What's the difference? What mattered was that I was sure she had cheated on me on Friday night, and probably many times in the previous weeks she had acted strangely. Having her rub it in my face was supposed to be her ultimate goal. Well, she finished it well. It was time to get ready for the rest of my life. I decided to go out to dinner at my favorite restaurant. I knew it would be a long wait, and that was okay. I didn't have anything to do. So I took a shower, put on my sport coat and slacks, and went to get a steak. I was sitting at the bar of a steakhouse waiting for a table when an older man sat down in the empty seat next to me. He saw my bottle of champagne with one glass and frowned. Fortunately, he didn't say anything, just ordered a martini. As the bartender was filling my glass, the man apparently couldn't resist asking, "Are you celebrating alone, or am I taking someone else's place?" "No," I said, "it's okay. I'm alone here." He nodded and took a sip. He must have been in sales because he couldn't sit still. He said, "Yes, I'm waiting for my 3 generations of red rage. My wife is helping my daughter who broke her arm today. I guess she doesn't take well to having to do everything with her left hand." He laughed and continued, "You just don't expect your grown children to break bones. I thought those days were behind us." I agreed with his opinion and nodded. Looks like I'll be cooking on my own for a few weeks. My wife will have to take care of Missy and Mia and leave me alone. I popped my head up. "What did you say?" Before he could answer, a little girl shouted from across the room, "Grandpa!" and rushed across the crowded bar. the little ball of red curls jumped into his lap and showered the man with hugs and kisses. A moment later, I heard, "Bill!" I turned and saw Missy, and who I assumed was her mother, standing next to me. Her mother was a perfect portrait of her. Except for a few wrinkles around her eyes, they looked exactly alike. "Hey, Missy. How's your arm?" "It's okay. I'm on strong painkillers, so I don't feel anything special. It hurt like hell when they put it in, though." Missy introduced me to her parents, Jack and Mary, and then to her adorable little girl, Mia. "Where's your wife, Bill?" she asked. "I don't know. She took my girls to the beach this morning, and I haven't heard from them all day." "Really? On Father's Day?" "Worse, it's also my birthday today." "Oh my God! She blew you off on your best day of the year? What's her problem?" I didn't want to get into it and say more than I should, so I shrugged. "Well, forget about her." "You have to join us," Mary said firmly. I realized what Jack meant by his red rage. "I don't—" "Forget about it, Bill. You don't want them to militia on you. It's not nice," Jack said with a chuckle, indicative of his years of experience militiaing on them. "But it's your day, Jack." "I don't want to interfere." "Bullshit," he said. "This is our day." "Grandpa, you said—" "I know, Pumpkin. I said a bad word. Grandma will punish me later." "Daddy!" He winked at me as their table's buzzer sounded. "Pay up, Bill, and meet me at our table." "No payoff." He said it in the tone of a drill instructor. He tossed a 20 on the counter and left. "I'm sorry, Bill." "My parents can be thick-headed." "Don't worry, Missy. I suppose it's better than eating alone." Conversation over dinner was light. Bill and I told stories about our daughters growing up, and Mia asked lots of questions. She kept giggling at the awkward stories about her mom as a child. After dinner, my phone rang. I saw that it was my wife, ignored the call, and put the phone on the table. "Your wife?" asked Mary. "Yes." "It's more than you think, isn't it?" asked Missy. "I think so, but I have no proof." "Bill, everyone makes mistakes," Mary said, looking directly at Jack. "Maybe you can find a way to forgive her." Missy popped her head up and stared at Mary. I beckoned to the waiter and handed him my credit card. "Well, I've destroyed enough of your meeting. Thank you for inviting me to share a meal with you." "Bill, let me—" "No, Jack. It was an honor to have lunch with you, and especially one of my favorite employees. It's on me. Happy Father's Day." I shook their hands and walked over to the waiter's counter to sign the check. I didn't even have hard evidence that she was cheating on me, but I'd already gotten 2-2 from people telling me I should forgive her. What's wrong with people? The phone rang over and over, but I ignored it. I pulled into my garage and was greeted by 2 whirling dervishes, showering me with kisses and hugs, apologizing for abandoning me on Father's Day. "Girls, don't worry about it. I don't expect you to remember when it's my birthday. "It's your birthday today?" yelled Jill. Then she ran into the house, yelling at my wife. "Daddy, we didn't know." "I'm so sorry," she sobbed against my chest. "You must hate us." "No, baby. I love you more than life itself." When she suggested last night that we go to the beach today, we jumped at the opportunity. "We didn't think—" "Baby, it's all right. Don't worry about it. I'm not mad at you." I didn't tell her I was mad at her mother, but that was my problem, not my daughter's. "Let's go inside." I walked through the kitchen, ignoring my wife crying and being scolded by my daughters, and went upstairs to change. Putting on shorts and a t-shirt, I returned to the war zone and found my wife sobbing alone. "I'm sorry," she muttered. I shook my head and went out on the deck with a beer and a cigar. It was a beautiful night, and I was enjoying the quiet, thinking about work instead of my wife, when the sliding door opened. "Bill, "What's his name?" I asked, interrupting her. I didn't look at her, and she didn't go any farther out on the deck. "Bill." "What's his name?" "The man you had sex with on Friday." My anger was building. I heard the door close, but she didn't come out. She didn't deny it. That's when I realized I was going to see a divorce lawyer soon. Almost 20 years of marriage gone. What a stupid woman I'd married. At this point, I started thinking the worst. How long had she been cheating? Was he her first? Did I know him? Were these girls even mine? It's amazing what negative thoughts come into your head when you're treated so badly. I decided to request a paternity test for the girls as part of the divorce. It would not only be for my peace of mind, but also for Katie's embarrassment. I spent the rest of the night researching divorce laws online and then fell asleep on the couch. That's how I spent my birthday. I woke up at 5 in the morning. I found Katie in my bedroom, sound asleep, curled around her pillow. The funny thing was that she looked peaceful, unlike how poorly I had slept. Her body was naked and her ass was showing in her panties. She was so beautiful, too bad she wasn't mine anymore. I would have missed her body. I grabbed what I needed and took a quick shower. I managed to escape without waking her, but Jill was waiting for me in the hallway. "How bad is it, Dad?" I sighed. "This is as bad as it can get." "Can you forgive her?" "I mean, it's just one day's oblivion." "Honey, she didn't just forget my birthday or Father's Day. She cheated on me." She sighed. "No, Daddy. She wouldn't. She had to do it, but I won't accept it. Think about it. The last few weeks she's been acting strange. Friday night, after getting a tan and getting her hair done, she went out dressed like a whore. That was definitely not for me." She shook her head. "Babe, she avoided me all day Saturday and Sunday. She clearly had either guilt or hatred for me and didn't want to be around me at all. When has she ever taken you to the beach without me? It's always a family excursion. What if it's not an affair? What if it was just a one-time thing? Can't you forgive her for one time?" "I doubt that's true, honey, but look at all her actions. For once this weekend, has she acted like she loves me? Daddy, you didn't see the look on her face when Grandma called her to ask why she didn't call Grandpa to wish him a happy Father's Day. She dropped the phone and yelled, 'No!' So loud we thought Grandpa was having a heart attack or something. He's okay, Dad." Mom sobbed on her knees until we lifted her up and sat her on the couch. She kept saying over and over that she loved you. Honestly, Jenny wanted to call an ambulance for her. She thought she was going to have a breakdown. We calmed her down and managed to get her to call you. "Jill, I don't know what you want me to say. She doesn't love me. You can't cheat on your spouse and love your spouse. That's not an act of love, that's selfishness. Love must be selfless. When she became intimate with another man, she discarded me." She hugged me and cried. "I'm going to assume it wasn't some random guy she picked up at a bar. She must have flirted or accepted his flirting with her. There must have been intimate touching, perhaps kissing and caressing, all of which preceded her first sex with him. All of these actions leading up to sex are a betrayal to your spouse. You can't be in love with someone and show someone else intimate affection. Please don't divorce her. I have to go to work. I'll talk to you later." She walked into Jenny's room. I'll be sure to tell her about what we talked about. There would be no more secrets in our family. I wondered how much longer we would be a family. I knew Kathy would be too busy at work to try to call or text me, so I was calm most of the day. The only thing that made the day not quite normal was filling out the corporate forms related to Missy's accident. She would be compensated for her vacation, and I hoped she wouldn't be too worried. I didn't know anything about her personal life, except that she wasn't married. She came in to sign the forms and fill out the accident report. I wrote it for her, as she is not good with her left hand, and she signed it. "How are things at home?" she asked. "Not really." She didn't deny it when I told her about her affair. "Shit, Bill. I'm sorry. I'm sure you don't want to know my life story, but I understand how you feel. My ex-husband cheated on me while I was pregnant. I kicked him out before my daughter was born. My mom was furious. She basically called me a throwaway." "Jesus." "I thought it was weird when your mom mentioned last night that she forgave my wife. She was looking right at your father when she said that." "Yeah, I noticed that too. I'm not sure who exactly, but it makes me think one of them was cheating." "I'm sorry." "You shouldn't. They seem happy, so they're free to live as they please. I prefer never to trust a liar." "Me too," I said firmly. Kathy wasn't home when I got home from work. She was probably having sex with her stud, and I was pissed. I got back in the car and drove the 2 miles to her grocery store. I saw her car in the parking lot, and to my surprise, I saw her sitting in it with a young man. When I stopped in front of her car, she noticed me, and I saw her yell, "No!" She opened the door, but I had time to leave. If she was going to cheat on me, he could have taken her. I'm done. I drove home and ran upstairs to pack. I planned to stay in a hotel until I found an apartment. Before I knew it, Jenny and Jill were crying and begging me to stay. Sorry, girls, but your mom was just about to cheat on me when I caught her. She was in the car with some guy when I pulled up beside her. Dad, this has to be a mistake. Girls, I know what I saw. She had a man in her car. Why would she stay after work and have a man in her car if she wasn't going to take him somewhere? She can't say they were just having lunch. There is no innocent explanation for her sitting in the back parking lot after work with a man in her car. Daddy, please don't break up our family, Jenny sobbed. Honey, your mother ruined our family. It's not my fault. I hugged them and kissed their cheeks. I love you girls. I'll be in touch every day. I left them crying in the bedroom and went to the garage. As I drove out of the garage, I was almost hit by Katie, speeding away. I shook my head and drove on. The next week was nothing short of pure hell. I refused to take my wife's calls, and for the first 3 days she called me every hour on the hour. She must have taken a week's vacation because she couldn't call from the shop floor and had to be on the job site all day. She left countless messages begging me to call her. I deleted every one of them. After those 3 days, my mother, mother-in-law, both daughters, and Kathy's sister begged me to talk to her. They all said it wasn't as bad as I thought, but every time I asked them if she had cheated on me, they wouldn't answer. They all knew she had. They just wouldn't admit it. I stopped taking everyone's calls. I told my daughters I would talk to them, but their mother was not to be mentioned. I had to hang up twice before they believed I was serious. At the end of the week, I met with a lawyer. I wanted to just split the house in half. She could own the house until the girls moved out. Then we would sell it. The lawyer said I could get more than half of the proceeds for the house since my contribution to the down payment and monthly payment is more than Kathy's, but I told him to just split everything equally. I thought alimony or maintenance was a done deal, but it turns out that since my wife makes enough money to support herself on her own, I don't have to pay her anything. That was the best news I've heard in a while. I don't have to pay her to fuck her lover. The only catch was that I had no proof of her cheating. The judge might not allow it and reduce it to irreconcilable differences, and I'd have to prove that we were trying to work things out. I'd take my chances. My attorney was preparing to file for divorce, and life went on. There would be no forced mediation or counseling. There would be no lawsuits for alienation of affection. There would be no drawn-out fight. The split was fair, and any judge could see that even blindfolded. But nothing comes easy. What she could do was fight. When she was handed the papers, she unleashed her family barrage on me again. Turns out she only f***ed a guy once that Friday before my birthday, or she convinced everyone that she did. I was labeled as the bad guy because I wouldn't let her explain. As if any explanation would have been acceptable. My mother basically called me a wuss because I didn't fight for my marriage. My mother-in-law told me that we are even because I too broke my vows by not staying with her during the hardest times. My daughters told me that I should stay in the family because our divorce would scar them for life. It was unreal. I hadn't done anything wrong, but I was being accused of divorce. It got to the point where I asked my daughters to give their saliva for a DNA test. They refused until I lied to them and told them it was a court order. Kathy wrote me a letter that was mailed to my store. I read it, and it said she was caught up in a kid's attention to her. I say kid because the bastard was only 21 years old. They'd only had sex once in the backseat of his car, and sexually he'd turned out to be worthless. Like the fact that he turned out to be a loser was supposed to fix everything? She also said that when I caught her in the car with a guy, I told him privately to never talk to her again. It didn't matter. She cheated on me once and once was enough. The best part was that because she gave me the letter, I didn't have to prove cheating for the divorce. She did it on her own. That meant I didn't have to file an irreconcilable differences claim and prove that we were trying to work things out. Karma was finally on my side. She tried to resist the divorce, but when the judge saw the terms I proposed and her letter confirming the infidelity, he approved it. I was supposed to be divorced in 60 days. And so I found myself alone on an island of desolation. For refusing to talk to her, I was labeled as immature and an asshole. It got to the point where my mother and my daughters stopped talking to me. It hurt, but I was on the side of righteousness, and if they didn't like it, well, I called my daughters every day. They never answered, but I left voice messages telling them what was going on with me and asking what was going on in their lives. I didn't let them blame me for our lack of communication. I continued to make every effort and get in touch with them, whether they wanted me to or not. One thing that changed was that I started having coffee with Missy on Sundays. It started innocently enough when we ran into each other at a local coffee shop. She and Mia lived in the neighborhood and were out for a walk. I invited them to join me and told her about my suffering while Mia watched cartoons on my iPad. "I'm sure your daughters will come around, Bill," she said. "They're young, impressionable, and living with your wife. There's no telling what nonsense she's put in their heads." I hope you're right. I just hope they're not too far gone. I miss them like hell. The next week, I walked into the same store at the same time and was reading when I heard, "Hey, stranger." I smiled and invited them to join me again. "Is this normal for you, or are you stalking me?" she asked with a smile. "No, I live nearby and I like to have a cup of coffee and read on Sunday mornings. It's kind of lonely at home, so I come here." She sipped from her cup and we chatted about the neighborhood until we parted ways. It wasn't a conscious decision to meet every Sunday, but we did. I enjoyed her company and little Mia was a delight. The day the divorce became final, I knocked on the front door of my old house. My wife answered, and it was obvious she was crying. She didn't say a word, just invited me in. "Are the girls home?" I asked. "They're watching the musical at school." "I know why you're here. I expected you to come tonight." "Really?" I asked with a smirk. "You waited until it was too late to stop it, didn't you?" "Yes," I said. "I knew you would beg and plead and tug at my heart trying to make up, and I couldn't let that happen. You broke my heart, and there's no way I'm forgiving you." "Damn it, Bill. It was one time. One bad mistake. Why couldn't you forgive me? Why couldn't you find a way to stay with me? Didn't you love me as much as I loved you all those years ago?" I laughed. "Did you love me when you flirted with your douche? Did you love me when you avoided me all weekend and left me alone on my birthday? If that's your idea of love, you're beyond help." "I never wanted this to happen," she sobbed. "I never wanted a cheating whore as a wife either, but here we are, we met." She gasped and started to speak before I interrupted her. "Katie, not only did you break my heart, but you turned my mother and my daughters against me. I will never forgive you for that either. It's your fault for acting irrationally." I got angry and said, "If you don't make my mother and my daughters apologize to me and make things right, I will tell every man you date that you are a cheating whore. I will try to ruin every relationship you have in the future because you ruined mine. I don't need anyone else." "Wrong answer. I guess I'll have to find other ways to hurt you and embarrass you." I got up to leave and she grabbed my arm. "It's not my fault." "You can't blame me." "Oh no? Did I cheat on you?" "I don't think so." "You know what's really disgusting? You allow your daughters to grow up believing that cheating on their husbands is acceptable. Because of your behavior, they'll go into adulthood assuming you're a saint and I'm a sinner, and it's okay because it was a one-time thing. Well, f*** it. I'm not going to go down because some asshole made you feel sexy." I pulled her hand away from mine and said, "Rotten hell for leaving our marriage. Just having sex with you, whore." I left her crying and wasn't upset about it. A few weeks later, Missy knocked on my office door. "Got a second, Bill?" "Sure, come on in." I frowned as she closed the door, expecting something bad to happen now. "Bill, does the company have a rule against dating other employees?" I hated it when she asked me that. I was hoping I'd be able to ask her out. Looks like I was too late. "No. We have a strict sexual harassment policy. This policy protects just about anything that can be damaged by a failed relationship between coworkers, and if two people can't work together after a breakup, it's their fault, not the company's." "Good. That's exactly what I was hoping for," she said, placing a folded piece of paper on my desk. "What's that?" I asked. "My address and phone number. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow night for dinner. Mia will be joining us." I smiled and agreed. Good. You're a good man, Bill. You deserve to be happy, and I want to give you a second chance at happiness. She popped out of my office with a cute spring in her step, and I looked forward to our dinner. Hey, it's Dad. I hope you and your sister are doing well. Business as usual in my world, except a woman at work asked me out to dinner. Well, anyway, I love you and miss you. Please call me soon. Bye. I knew this message would cause some problems, but I didn't care. I needed to move on, and I was glad to see that Missy had taken over, as she had before. Missy was a beautiful woman with an even more beautiful character. Her daughter was very well developed and adorable, and I had already met her parents. I felt like I was finally ahead of the curve. Only 15 minutes had passed when Katie texted me, "I can't believe you're already dating. You're a real bastard." I laughed when I read this. I never realized how delusional she was. To think that I would sit there and worry about her was insane. Maybe some guys would mourn the loss of their marriage at the hands of a cheating wife, but that wasn't me. At 41, I was young enough to find love again. Hell, I was young enough to have more kids if I wanted to. That was worth thinking about. Missy was in her early 30s. She might want to have more kids. I knew it was too early for such thoughts, but as a single mom, these things were probably high on Missy's list of potential suitors. I'm sure she was looking for a husband, not a toy. Though I certainly didn't mind being her toy. I hadn't gotten laid in months. The next evening, I showered and shaved after work and dressed casually. Looking in the mirror, I didn't mind what I saw. I was in good shape with no extra wheels or love handles. I had a full head of brown hair that had yet to show gray. I had a great job that paid well and had money in the bank. I considered myself a pretty good catch for any woman, let alone a young one like Missy. That's when I realized I had no idea how to date someone. When you are married, you are always together and know everything about each other. There was no problem holding hands or kissing. When you came home after a night out, you knew sex was just around the corner. The status quo was comfortable. Oh my God! I had to relearn how to have sex. I knew every point on my ex-wife's body that gave her pleasure. I just had to hope that the next woman I had sex with liked the same thing, or at least had a good relationship with her. I was afraid I wasn't ready to date and regretted getting into the dating scene so quickly. I knocked on the door of her house with a bottle of wine, flowers, and a stuffed animal. I decided it wouldn't hurt to gain Mia's favor. When she opened the door, I was shocked by what I saw. Her curly red hair was loose around her shoulders, and she was wearing the perfect amount of makeup. She was wearing a roomy sundress that came down about 4 inches above her knees, showing off her beautiful legs. She was barefoot, and her toes were painted a hot pink color to match her fingernails. She laughed and asked, "Do I pass the test?" "God, yes," I said, before I could take back my words. She laughed even harder and took the flowers and wine from me. "Mia is watching TV. Go tell her hello. She'll love the bear." She left for the kitchen and I knelt down next to Mia. "Hi, sweetie. I brought you a bear cub." She looked at me apprehensively and then lit up the room with her smile. She held out her hands for the bear and ran to show it to Missy as soon as she picked it up. It brought back fond memories of Jenny and Jill at the same age. I realized how long it had been since we had talked to them, and I missed them even more. "What's wrong?" asked Missy, breaking me from my thoughts. I smiled forcibly and replied, "Nothing. I was just thinking about my daughters when they were Mia's age." "Is it really that bad?" she asked. "They still won't talk to me. Kathy has turned them against me, and I can't change their minds. But I'm still trying. I leave them messages every day and I'm not going to stop." "I'm so sorry, Bill." "I know this is terrible for you. Every day. But I know they listen to my messages. I told them about our date tonight, and Katie texted me to tell me I was an asshole for getting to the point so quickly." "Sorry, that's not too fast, is it?" She bit her lip and looked pretty damn cute while doing it. "Maybe," I answered honestly, "but I'd be happy to find out with you." She smiled and took my hand. "Dinner is ready. I hope you like pasta with meat sauce." "Sounds great." "Oh, I have garlic bread too, so you should be ready for us to make out on the couch later." Mia giggled and I stood there shocked that Missy had gotten so candid. She saw my awkwardness and said, "Bill, we're both adults, and I've known you for 3 years. I know what kind of man you are, And it doesn't take much to realize that I really like you. You're going to be a hot commodity soon, and I want to stake my claim early." "Hot stuff?" I asked. "Yep. You have no idea how much buzz the news of your divorce has caused at the store. Honey, your appearance on the market, so to speak, has caught the attention of many unmarried ladies. You're a handsome man in good shape, you're smart, stable, and we all know how you feel about fidelity." When I sat down at her table, I felt quite good. "So I'm getting in line early," she finished. I took her hand and squeezed it. "I like you too." Mia, not wanting to be left out, said, "Sketty is my favorite." "I like Sketty too." "The fattier the better," I said. Seeing a jar of Parmesan cheese on the table, I added, "And you must have really stinky cheese." She giggled and replied, "It's not stinky cheese. It's Parm. Stinky cheese," I said, bringing the jar up to my nose and imagining it was the worst smell ever. "Wow, this is really stinky cheese." Missy shook her head as I handed the jar to Mia. She sniffed it, shrugged, and poured a generous portion over the spaghetti. Over dinner, we kept up a light conversation. I asked about Mia's preschool class and her friends. She easily told me all the details she could remember. I enjoyed the conversation immensely. After a while, I realized that Missy wasn't talking. She was smiling broadly and just watching her daughter and I exchange a few phrases. Eventually, she started collecting plates and I said, "Let me help." "Oh no. She hasn't told you about her favorite TV shows yet." She laughed as Mia started telling me about all the best children's shows. After putting Mia to bed, Missy came back and sat next to me on the couch. I handed her a glass of wine and she sighed contentedly, putting her feet up on the poof. I love being a mom, but sometimes it's the best part of the day for me. Instinctively, I put my arms around her. When she snuggled up to me, I said, "It's worse with two." "You bet. Do you think your girls will come around?" "I hope so," I replied thoughtfully. "I'm doing my best right now, but it's still raw for them." She turned and kissed my cheek. "You're a great father. Just don't give up the fight for them." She set down her glass and leaned back in her chair. "Bill, I've already told you that I really like you, and I'm too old to play the will we or won't we game. I'd like to keep seeing you, and that includes inviting you into my bedroom." I was about to tell her we didn't have to do that, but she raised her finger. "I know you want to be a gentleman and all, but you don't have to be. What I'm trying to say is that I don't want to be your girlfriend having sex with you or a friend with privileges. I'm warning you that I'm looking for an exclusive relationship. I have a daughter to think about, and frankly, she needs a daddy just as much as I need a husband." I tried to speak again, but was again rebuffed. This conversation usually ends with the guy picking himself up and running away. I don't think you're like that, but I'm giving you a way out. If you want to sow your oats and experience the single life, I'm not your girl. If, however, you want to see if we have a chance at a long life, I'm your woman. "Wow," I said. "Did you prepare that speech or was it given on the fly?" She frowned, misinterpreting my feelings. "Missy, as you said, we've known each other in a working relationship for 3 years now. The last few weeks of having coffee together have been very pleasant. I'm a family man, that's all I've ever been. I don't know how to be single, and the thought of dating scares the hell out of me. If my wife could keep her legs shut, I'd still be a happily married family man. No, I don't want to play on that field." She smiled and took my hand. I continued, "You're beautiful, smart, and you make great spaghetti." She laughed and playfully clapped me on the shoulder. "I'd like to be your boyfriend. Consider me part of creating something good for all of us, including your little girl." We didn't make love that night. As much as I wanted to take her right there on the couch, I decided it was best not to rush things. She had practically confessed her love to me and was very aroused, and I decided that for my comfort, it was best to take my time. I received a gift from the gods when I received an application for a managerial position. I never learned the name of the brat who ruined my marriage and couldn't get back at him. But when he showed up for an interview for the night manager position, I recognized him immediately. I knew he would never recognize me, but he might recognize my name, so I asked Anne to interview him and hire him on the spot. On the second night of his job, I waited in the parking lot for him to start his shift. I walked over to his 90s car and put a 40-inch TV I had bought from a competitor in the back seat. We had the same model, and I happened to know that one of them happened to be in stock. In the morning, I timed my arrival to coincide with the end of his shift. I walked him to his car, chatting about what he thought of his crew of guys. When we got to the car, I noticed the TV in the back seat and pretended to be shocked. "Jeff, did you buy a TV before your shift?" "We're not open yet." "No, Bill. It's not mine. I don't know how it got there." "Jeff, I think we need to go back to the store." "Bill, you have to believe me." "Check the cameras." I shook my head and said, "Okay. Bring the TV." We went back to the store and the baby was scared to death. At one point, I thought he was going to cry. We didn't have night security because since the store closed for the night and had a night crew working there, we didn't need it. We had cameras everywhere and only one place the cameras could be turned off. Only the managers had the key to that room. The camera was pointed at the door to the room, but it was above the doorway to the stairwell. I mentioned this to security a few years ago, but they never fixed the problem. Then I easily opened the door to the stairwell, walked over and covered the camera with a piece of black duct tape. I then disabled the security camera system. Well, technically I shut down the computer that controlled the system. When I brought him into the room and he saw that the computer wasn't working, he panicked and continued to plead his innocence while I called the police, as per the rules. When all was said and done, the guy was convicted of a misdemeanor and got no jail time. I was hoping he'd get a couple months, but it wasn't an expensive enough TV. He had to do a bunch of community service and pay a fine, which oddly enough was more than I paid for the TV. With a felony on his record, he'd also have a hard time finding a retail job. That made me happier, but still not worth the risk I took. The corporation increased security by installing cameras in the parking lot. They were long overdue. He was so stupid he never realized I did it. He tried to blame the team for setting him up, but he couldn't prove anything. They didn't miss him when I fired him. On a chilly Saturday morning, a week after dinner with Missy, I saw her waiting in the car to stay warm. When I parked next to her, she met me at the door and greeted me with a kiss. "Are we still having dinner tonight?" she asked. "Absolutely." "Okay. I have something special I'm cooking for us. You won't want to miss it." "I wouldn't." "Is that the tramp?" asked Katie from behind me, interrupting me. "Excuse me?" shouted Missy, unclenching her claws completely. "Katie, what do you want?" I asked, getting annoyed. "I've been trying to call you." "Did you block my number?" "Yeah. After your 30 messages about how I'm an asshole for continuing to live, I'm done." "What do you want?" "I want to talk about the girls. We need to deal with college. They can go wherever they want. I took care of the money for them. I'd like to be a part of it, but since you poisoned them against me, they won't talk to me. They're afraid you won't pay your tuition." "Of course I'll pay for it. I still love them, even though because you can't keep your legs closed, I lost them in the divorce." Missy laughed. Katie glared at her and said, "It's not my fault you couldn't forgive me for one slip-up." "Oh? One slip-up? It was only once because you weren't tactful. I dealt with you right away." "It doesn't matter." "You should still be my husband. We should still be a family." "You're delusional. You cost me my marriage, my family, my daughters, and my mother. I swear you better never date a man if I find out about this. You'll never see a second date. No one wants to date a cheating whore, unless they know about your reputation and are looking for easy sex." I turned and walked toward the store. I heard yelling behind me, and when I turned around, I saw that Missy had Katie pinned against the car, jabbing her finger in her face. "Stay away from my man, bitch." "You threw him away and I picked him up." I ran up and pulled her away. "Stop it, Missy. She's not worth this kind of trouble." "You heard me, bitch," shouted Katie, and turned and walked toward the store. "Please go away, Katie. It's over between us and it's your fault. Yours and yours alone." I left her sobbing by the car. I caught up with my panting Missy and took her hand. She looked up and smiled at me, slowing down. "I'm sorry, Bill. I guess I was being too territorial." "Oh no! I like it when women fight over me in the parking lot. It's great for my ego." We laughed and went inside to get some work done. Later that morning, my mom called me. When I answered, she mumbled, "Billy, She didn't finish, and I heard a knock, but the call didn't end. I hung up and called back, but there was no answer. I called 911 to have them send an ambulance to her, but was told the call had already come from her house. I feared the worst and asked Anne to cover for me since I had to go. She understood, and as I ran through the store, I ran past Missy, who yelled after me. I ignored her and ran straight to my car. When I got to my mom's house, the ambulance was already pulling away, and I followed it. When I got to the back doors, I found that she was gone before the ambulance arrived at the hospital. She must have passed out while we were on the phone. I cried sitting in the lobby of the emergency room. I sat there alone and thought about the last word my mom had said to me. What was she going to say? Maybe it was, "Am I in trouble? Am I having a heart attack? I'm sorry?" The phone rang and it was Missy. "Hey, my mom just died." "Oh, Bill. I'm so sorry." "Yes, thank you. I'm afraid I won't be good company tonight." "No, I'll be with you." "You need me, please let me come." "Okay, yes," I said. I didn't want to be alone and I was glad she'd agreed to be with me. "I'm on my way home. I'll meet you there after you get out." "Okay. I'll see you soon." I finished talking and went to my car. Instead of driving home, I drove to my old house. I needed to tell my girls, whether they wanted to see me or not. As I pulled up to the house, I saw both girls' cars in the driveway and sighed. I had never imagined that the first words we would say to each other would be such news. I didn't care that I didn't live there anymore. I entered the code into the garage door opener and stepped inside. Kathy's car wasn't there, and I was glad for that. I don't think I was in the right state of mind to see her. The living room and kitchen were empty, so I went upstairs to the bedrooms. "Daddy!" yelled Jill as I walked into her room. "What do you want?" shouted Jenny, coming in after me. "Did you come to beg?" "Well, you can go to—" "Grandma had a heart attack and died this morning," I said, interrupting her. They both gasped. "I just thought I should tell you this in person. Now I'm going to hell." I walked out and closed the door behind me. I heard Jenny yell for me to wait, but I ran to my car and drove away. I went to the little lake where I spent so much happy time with the girls. It was too cold for boats, but the water was starting to thaw and was very calm. I sat down on the picnic bench and cried again. This time I cried not only for my mother, but for the loss of my daughters. The fury in Jenny's voice told me that I wasn't needed in her life. She didn't need to tell me to go to hell. Her tone said it all for her. I wondered if I'd made a mistake along the way. Not with Katie, but with the girls. What had I done so wrong that made them hate me so much? Katie was the one who ruined our marriage. Why can't my daughters understand that? I don't know how long I sat there, but I heard someone approach. I turned around and it was Katie and the girls. "How did you find me here?" I asked, turning around to look at the lake again. "You didn't turn off the synchronization of our Find a Phone app," Kathy said. "Bill, I'm sorry about your mom." "Yeah?" I spat. "Do you regret her death or the fact that you turned her against me and she died without ever making up?" She didn't say anything. "Leave me alone, I can't deal with your shit right now," I continued. "I'll never forgive you for what you did to me." The last time we talked, she told me she wouldn't talk to me again until I came to my senses and backed out of the divorce. She didn't even say she loved me when she hung up on me. "I'm so sorry, Bill. For everything." I heard her leave and Jenny said, "Dad, we're sorry too. Please forgive us for being bitches." I turned around and they both rushed over to hug me. We cried in each other's arms for what seemed like an eternity. It's not my fault, girls. Why can't you realize that what your mother did is the reason we're no longer together? "We're sorry, Dad," Jill said. "We just thought you should forgive her." "She loves you, it's so obvious." "Not enough to keep me faithful, Jill." "I'm sorry, girls. I'm so sorry." We hugged again while Kathy watched from the warm car. "Girls, I need you so much. You'll be leaving for college soon, and I'm going to miss you. We're wasting so much time." "We get it, Daddy," Jenny said. "We're not going to shut you out anymore," Jill added. "I wish your grandmother had a chance to do the same." "Daddy, can we come with you?" "We haven't seen your new house yet. Maybe we could get a pizza." "Sure, tell your mom and let's go." When I pulled into my driveway, I saw Missy's car. I forgot she was coming. Girls, it looks like you're going to meet Missy. Is she your girlfriend? They asked in unison, making me laugh. Yeah, well, we just started dating. Look how he's blushing, Jenny. It's so cute. They jumped out of the car and were at Missy's door in a flash. They peppered her with questions, and I could see that Missy didn't understand what was going on. Girls, leave her alone. Carry her into the house and I'll introduce you all. They kissed me on the cheek and scurried off to my garage, and I walked over to a shocked Missy. Sorry about that, I said when she opened the door. She smiled radiantly and kissed my cheek. Your daughters? Mm-hmm. Come on, you'll be formally introduced. I wish I knew, dear. I must look awful. I laughed and replied, You're fine. They'll like you. Jenny, Jill? I want you to meet Missy. They hugged. Jenny, as usual, cheekily declared, You're super hot. Jill jumped up and said, Good for you, Daddy. Missy laughed and I was too shocked to say anything. Hey, let's take a quick look around the house, and then I have some things to take care of for Grandma's services. Bill, I'll order some pizzas while you show them around. Sounds good to me, darling. You read my mind. Oh, the girls cooed. I shook my head as Missy smiled. I decided that I would wait until the next morning to call and spread the word about my mom. I'll write an obituary in Monday's paper and post details of the service on Facebook after visiting the funeral home on Sunday. After dinner, we sat around and spent hours telling Missy stories about my mom. My girls, not so innocently, added a few embarrassing stories about me to keep Missy more interested. It wasn't my fault the pier was wet and I fell in the lake, I swear. Before I knew it, it was 10. Girls, time is slipping away from me and it's getting late. They frowned and asked, Can we stay the night? I don't have beds for the guest rooms yet. Tell you what, I'll pick you up in the morning and we'll go out to breakfast, okay? If you don't mind, I could use some help figuring out what to do with Grandma's stuff too. Of course, Dad. We'll help if we need it. Thank you. Missy, do you want to go for a ride? Or do you need to go home to Mia? She's staying with my parents. Jill jumped up. Who's Mia? Mia is my 4-year-old daughter. They both squealed, and Jenny said, Oh my God, I can't wait to meet her. Missy laughed at their excitement and said, Someday soon, I promise. Okay, let's go. They're great girls, Missy said, as we sat on the couch shortly after returning to my house. I'm glad you were able to get back together with them. I sighed. Me too. I just wish it didn't require my mom's death. She snuggled into my arms and I fell asleep with my arms around her. When I woke up in the morning, she had covered us with a blanket and was still snuggled up against me. I missed being so close to someone. I kissed the top of her head and said, I'm sorry I fell asleep on you. She moaned, stretching. It's okay, baby. You've had a very emotional day. Would you like to join me and the girls for breakfast? Only if I can take Mia with me. My parents have plans for this morning. Of course. My daughters will like her. Since we needed to pick up Mia, I asked my daughters to meet us at IHOP. When I walked in holding Mia's hand, my girls rushed to her. Within seconds, Mia was in their arms, twirled in the air, and then they tickled her and covered her with kisses. She squealed and giggled the whole time with a huge smile, to the point of yelling, I have to go to the bathroom. The girls said in unison, We'll take her, and scurried off to the bathroom. I don't know, Missy. Do you think they'll get along? I asked with a smirk. She playfully clapped me on the shoulder and kissed my cheek. I hope it stays that way for years to come, she said. She was set for the long term, and technically we only had one date. It was a little unnerving, but I was confident I could handle the feeling. As we ate, Mia and my daughters talked nonstop about everything. I could see in my eyes that Mia loved to talk, and not just about herself. She asked so many questions about my daughters' lives that I think even my girls were surprised. My daughters were neighborhood babysitters, so interacting with young children was their forte. They knew all the hot kids shows and movies, and Mia ate them out of the palm of her hand. They also got along well with Missy. There was no hostility or display of anger when I dated her, which shocked me. They refused to talk to me for months after the divorce, but as soon as they met my new girlfriend, they immediately became best friends. I didn't understand that, and I'm going to have to try and get some sort of explanation from the girls. After making dozens of phone calls, starting the long process of cleaning my mom's house, and visiting the funeral home, I was finally able to sit down and relax. The girls got back to my house for dinner, and Missy and Mia split off in different directions after breakfast. Missy decided it would be too emotional for us, and wanted to avoid the discomfort of Mia asking questions about everything while we sorted things out at my mom's house. "Daddy, are you in love with Missy?" asked Jenny suddenly. "We've only seen each other a couple times outside of work. It's a little early to call it love." "Okay, Dad," Jill said like I was an idiot. "Have you seen those good old cartoons where the girls' eyes flutter open and they fold their palms against their cheeks as they look at their prince?" I nodded, taking a bite of a slice of pizza. "Well, she practically has hearts floating around in her head when she looks at you and flaps her eyes," Jill said. Before I could deny that she liked me, they looked at each other, turned to me and said, "We like her." I went from excited to see my daughters to angry. I threw my piece on my plate, wiped my hands, and went to the sink. Leaning on the counter facing them, I tried to calm down. "Daddy?" asked Jenny. "Girls, how can you break my heart all this time and now sit there and tell me you like my girlfriend? What have I done to you to make you think it's okay to shut me out? Ignore me? Tell me to go to hell when I see you for the first time in my life? What did I do? Do you know how many times I cried after leaving you a message I knew you didn't care to receive? Mom made us." "What?" shouted I. Jill replied, "It all started when my mom told us, if you think you're losing us, come back to her and we'll be a family again. We are so sorry." I turned around and Jenny, seeing a tear on my cheek, rushed to hug me. "Dad, we're sorry. After it didn't work, she told us that you left us and weren't going to pay for college because we wanted you to stay with her. She told us that the messages you left were just a ploy you used in the divorce to make it seem like you were the good guy to please the judge. And you believed that. Dad, how would you react sitting with her day after day and hearing her defend her one-time mistake against 20 years of love? We thought you were being unreasonable. What about me? Would you let your boyfriend cheat on you?" I didn't get an answer. "Where does the border run?" I asked decisively. "Once? 2? 5? Answer me!" They started crying and we hugged. Their hugs immediately calmed me down and I felt awful. "I'm sorry, girls. I missed you guys so much." After each of them confessed their love to me, I said, "It's time to bring you home. You have school tomorrow. Don't forget to have your mom tell them about the wake and funeral. You're going to need some free time this week." We hugged one more time and I watched with warmth in my heart as they drove away. I looked up at the sky and said, "You didn't have to go to bring the girls back to me, Mom, but thank you. I'll miss you." Wakes are hard for me because I always felt uncomfortable sitting in a room with a dead body. My mom's wake was especially hard. Throughout the day, I walked over to the casket several times and looked at her. She looked peaceful. I was glad that she would see my father again. A few years before, he had died of cancer. He wanted a different kind of funeral without a wake. He, like me, thought it was strange for people to interact with a corpse. Mom had it all planned out. I guess you get older when you think about things like that. She'd even picked out the casket. All I had to do was set a time and day and take care of the small details of setting up the room and the service. I was glad she had done that. I was standing at the front of the room talking to one of her friends when Katie and my girls walked in. My daughters greeted me with warm, tear-filled hugs, and Katie gratefully left me alone. After saying the prayer, Kathy put something in the casket and went to the back of the room where she sat alone. I looked to see what she had put in there, and it was a picture of Kathy and me hugging my mom. She was holding each of our babies in her arms, and a smile a mile wide shone on her face. I picked up the photograph she had hidden away and reverently placed it next to her hands. It was the first time I cried that day. Later, the priest wanted to begin the prayer service. Kathy never left her seat at the back of the room. She engaged everyone. You can't be a family member for as long as she was married and not recognize people, and they all loved her. The protocol was for the immediate family to sit in the front row of chairs. My girls sat on my right and Misty on my left. but that felt wrong. I stood up and turned around. I saw Katie, who was still standing in the back of the room, wiping tears from her eyes. It didn't seem right to me. My mom wouldn't have wanted this. Kathy was as much a daughter to her as she was a wife to me. I walked to the back of the hall. When everyone was sitting and waiting for the service to begin, they noticed me and started following me. I held out my hand to Katie. "Come here to me. You don't need to hide here." She started sobbing and hugged me. Letting go of me, she whispered, "Thank you." We walked to the front of the hall, and my Uncle John gave her his seat, which was next to my daughter. "You're a good man, Bill," Missy whispered, kissing my cheek. It was the strangest feeling of my life, holding Missy's hand when my ex-wife was only a few feet away from me. I prayed that I wouldn't regret it later and have a problem with them. As we were wrapping up the day, I was saying goodbye to the last of the visitors when Kathy came up to me. With Missy next to me, I wondered how Katie would behave. I hoped she wouldn't start a fight out of respect for my mother. "Bill, thank you for inviting me into the family today. It means more than you can imagine. She loved you like a daughter. It was the right thing to do." "Oh, that reminds me. If you want, you can ride in the limo with us and the girls tomorrow." She hugged me and cried. I felt Missy's hand on my waist, and I was afraid a fight was coming. "Well," Katie said, breaking the embrace, "if you don't want anything from me, I'll go home." I shook my head negatively, and she smiled briefly at Missy. "I'm glad you're here for him. You may not know it, but he was a mama's boy. It's going to be really hard on him soon that she's gone." With those words, she turned and left the room. Missy hugged me from all sides and said, "Let's get you home." I threw my keys in my locker and made my way to the kitchen, glad the day was over. Missy was sitting at the table, accepting a cold beer from me. "I think things with Kathy went better than you expected." "You handled it well," she said as I enjoyed my cold Sam Adams. "Yeah, I'm glad. I was really expecting her to start something with you." "Well, I'm sure the girls helped with that. We just need to get through tomorrow and we'll be fine." I hoped she was right. I don't know why I got the uneasy feeling that Katie wouldn't be able to handle dealing with Missy. I guess I'm just paranoid. "Will you stay the night with me?" I asked. She smiled and took my hand. "You couldn't kick me out even if you tried." We didn't make love, but she was spooning with me, and it was the best sleep I'd had since the divorce. "You're watching me like a hawk." "I'm not going to abuse your gift by getting into an argument," Kathy said as we waited for prayer to begin. "I know that," I lied. "I'm just uncomfortable with it." She snorted and asked, "How do you think I feel? I'm an outcast here? A whore?" I frowned. "No one thinks that about you. Especially not today." "I'm sorry, Bill. I wish I could make it never happen. I wish." She cried and hurried to the bathroom. "It's hard on all of us, Bill," my mother's friend Jean said, patting me on the shoulder. "Your mom was a wonderful woman and we'll all miss her." I kissed her cheek and thanked her, glad that Katie had her mom's back to her tears. After the funeral, we were seated at a table at my mother's favorite Polish restaurant. The room was full, and Kathy looked uncomfortable as she searched for an empty seat. I approached her again and led her by the hand to the table where Missy and my daughters were sitting. "Kathy, we will always be a family no matter the divorce. No matter where we sit, you will always be welcome." A tear rolled down her cheek as she sat up and thanked me. I don't know when I got over it, but I felt like I'd finally forgotten the pain she'd caused. Life went on. The girls went to college and Skype with me every week. Missy and I are still together, and I am very close to popping the question. Katie and I communicate infrequently but cordially. She is also moving on with her life, dating the divorced father of a friend of one of the girls. He's a nice guy. I hope things work out for them. Some will say I should have forgiven her for the one-time slip-up, but I just can't do that. I may be the bad guy in some people's minds, but I can live with myself.